So I like scary movies, The Shining, the Scream franchise, fantastic stuff. But gore is tough for me. Whew, it's very difficult. But I wanted to review Evil Dead Rise. Why? Because the trailer really took the internet by storm. I didn't react to it, and I had all these people tweeting me, many of you saying, oh my gosh, are you going to react to this? And I was like, let me see this thing. Because I was very busy, I think, at the time. So I was like, let me take a look at it. And as it unfolded before me, I was like, should have reacted to it. So I was like, I'm not going to make the same mistake with reviewing the movie. I'm going to make sure I review it. Because, a lot of fans were impressed with what they saw, particularly horror fans. And the Rotten Tomatoes score, well, it was very impressive. Warner Brothers only released it to a few critics far in advance, mostly those who specialize in horror, and it was rocking like a 96 or something. But now, as more critics review the film who are not horror aficionados, I feel like the gore is probably a little bit too much for them. And it's the Rotten Tomatoes score is dropping. My opinion? Well, first let me tell you about my screening experience. So once again, I found myself in the basement of AMC Lincoln Square. Watching a movie in a basement takes on a whole new meaning when it's this movie. And as I sat there waiting for the movie to start, one of the scariest things was how late it started. I was like, does this start at 6 o'clock or what, man? It started at like 6:20, I think. I had just enough time to tweet out the huge Jonathan Majors story, and then the lights were going down. So as I sat there waiting for the movie to start for all this time, a couple came in and they sat a little bit down the row, my same row from me. And they were talking, we were all, amusing ourselves while we waited for this movie to start. And I suddenly heard the man behind us exclaim to the woman, "Whoa, you hate horror movies?" And she was like, "No, thank you. I love them. I'm here to support him." And she was talking about the gentleman she was with. And the inquisitive man behind us then asked the man, he turned to the man and he said, "What are you doing then seeing this movie?" I think, of course, inferring that Evil Dead has quite the reputation, and it does, and it lives up to it. But I also think oblivious to the fact that we were at a critic screening. Why do you think he's there? Why do you think? He's a critic. It's his job to be there. And so to offer some camaraderie, I spoke up and confessed that I too have a difficult time with gory horror films, which put me on the inquisitive man's radar, who then turned to me and asked what I was doing there. And I was incredulous that he was still asking that. I'm like, same reason that dude's here. We're movie critics. I'm here to review the movie. And then he, I'm sure a lot of you have had conversations like this. So this guy's like, "Well, you seem predisposed to hating it." And so I said very nicely back, "Well, I hear very good things about the film. People seem impressed with it, so I would like to see it." So how do I feel about the movie? Well, I respect the movie from a filmmaking perspective, and I think some of the acting is quite good. Very good. But oh boy, it's disgustingly gory. It's so gory. And also it's disturbing. It's so disturbing. In fact, when the end credits were playing and they show like demonic images on screen, I was going to wait and to see if there was an end credit scene and just look down at the floor. But they had like this music going and I was like, I'm just going to get out of here. Also, during the screening, what a screening. Where was the Warner Brothers rep? They usually leave after the screening starts, and I wish they wouldn't. Because one guy, and they didn't even have security. I guess they didn't care if anybody taped it. But this one guy kept taking out, or woman, I couldn't see who it was, taking out their phone at one corner of the theater, and a bright light would light up the theater for a second. Really not fun during any movie, but particularly a dark and scary horror film like this one. So like the third time, I was like, I'm going to say something. But then I was like, no, this movie, I'm so disturbed. Let's just keep to ourselves. Let's keep our head down. Literally, I only saw about 2/3 of this movie. I was so scared. And you know what? Thankfully, a lot of the shock moments are telegraphed. Like some character starts wrapping someone else's ponytail around their wrist. Time to look down. Raising a cheese grater above someone's leg. Time to look down. And I will say that I was surprised that there are so many child actors in this film. The two teenagers are probably okay, but little Nell Fisher, some of the things she was put through, even if she said it was okay or her guardian approved it, if I were a director or a producer, I'd be like, I don't know if we should do this. She's a trooper though, I'll say that, and poor little Taiwano. They really put him through the ringer as well. And while it's a horror staple for characters to do dumb things, there'd be no movie if they didn't, some of the things done in this movie were beyond stupid. I'm like, wow. Although I thought it was clever to make this a family under attack, because you're less likely to abandon a blood relative who you love than you are a teenage frenemy, right? And I think that keeps our characters interacting with this insane demon wearing their mother longer than they would with perhaps another demon, right? There were other factors at play. They did a good job. I mean, they made it make sense why they were stuck here. As for Evil Dead fans, I think you're going to be very happy with this installment. Even I, a casual fan of the franchise, I'm familiar with it, I could spot the excellent nods to the franchise. From the very inventive Sam Raimi style camera work, oh, that was great. I love that, in fact. Still fun. And then also some characters end up bathed in blood and wielding a chainsaw. I was like, that is a nice call out to the franchise. I also discovered after the fact, but now you'll know going in, that Bruce, it's not a spoiler, the voice of the priest on a recording is Bruce Campbell. Oh, he did a real nice job. So good, in fact, I'm sorry I heard it. I'm like, that's really disturbing. Good job, Bruce. Let's turn it off. So that's why I have to respect this movie. Its goal is to be disturbing and to show what an escaped demon from hell would probably be like. And I gotta tell you, I'm convinced. I am really convinced. They sold me. This is the 5th Evil Dead movie. It's the first 3 starred Bruce Campbell, of course, famously. I actually really love Army of Darkness. We watched it for a BTT movie club, but that's more of a fantasy comedy. Evil Dead 2 also has comedic elements. This one is not at all comedic, and the 2013 remake was also not comedic. That's sort of famous, or maybe infamous, for how it pushes the edge of the envelope. It put writer-director Fede Alvarez on the map, and while he's had a little bit of a shaky time afterwards, he did just land himself an Alien movie. So that's pretty good. It doesn't hurt to be part of the Evil Dead franchise and to have the Sam Raimi stamp of approval. The movie, I mean, imagine what he could have done with Multiverse of Madness, Raimi, if he had not been, tied down. All right, so anyway, this movie is written and directed by Lee Cronin from Ireland, and it's only his second feature. His first film got like an okay reception. He's not like some horror wonder kid, though, so I'm curious why they picked him. His directing and writing are fine. They're serviceable. But the real stars here are the production design. An apartment building about to be condemned. A lot of people live in an apartment building that's about to be condemned, complete with an elevator that clearly has not had a safety inspection in quite some time. It's like a modern Los Angeles grunge punk tower of terror. And I thought that was great. The grunge punk aesthetic is an interesting and unique choice. From Mom Ellie being a tattoo artist who's dyed her hair like a purplish blood red, to her 2 androgynous teenage kids, including, by the way, trans actor Morgan Davies, as well as Fisher playing a dark, twisted take on Drew Barrymore in E.T. These kids are tough and they're strong. And I think it's because their family has been through a lot. They've been through a lot. And I think that might speak to a lot of moviegoers, especially horror fans, who might see themselves reflected more in this film than they do classic horror movies. So the production design, amazing. And then the acting. Alyssa Sutherland, where'd she come from? Vikings! She's been on that show for 10 years. But while Travis Fimmel and to some degree Catherine Winnick have gotten a lot of attention in the mainstream media for a lot of comic book roles for a while, I saw a lot of fans going, cast Catherine Winnick. But why didn't any of you ever suggest Alyssa Sutherland? She's fantastic. I hope she gets attention now. She's a former model. I thought maybe she was like a former Cirque du Soleil or some kind of performer like that, because she really is able to twist her limbs really effectively, and her face. I mean, she's just like hypnotic. She's really into it, and she's the true star of this film. I don't think you'd have a movie if it weren't for her. She is a wonderful bit of casting. She's just fantastic. And she even does excellent work pre-possession, so much so that you feel a lot of sympathy for her and are constantly reminded of the person that she was, even when you're staring at the horror that she has become. You're like, oh man, she is such a nice lady. Hero, villain, I could see Sutherland playing either. I think she's a huge talent, and I'm surprised no franchise has picked her up before this. I hope a lot of casting directors, and producers see this movie. Her agent should send it around, or at least clips, and be like, why are you hiring this woman? Lilly Sullivan is also excellent as her sister and the aunt to these kids. And while at first she just seems like your typical actress in a horror movie, in the third act, she really steps up. You're like, oh, now I see it. She's very good. And she really sells the big action finale. I thought she was great. All three child actors, Davies Fisher and Gabriel Eccles, are also good, very good. A lot is asked of them, and they really rise to the challenge. I also have to give the movie credit for being very creative with its gore and disturbing scenarios. Like the cheese grater, that's inspired. And there was a lot of stuff where I was like, oh, that's different, before I looked down at the floor. It was crazy. It was out there. So if you enjoy the Evil Dead franchise or super gory films, this is for you. Everyone else, this is certainly like a top entry in this type of movie, so you might want to check it out. But just realize what you're getting into and maybe go to a matinee. That way when you get out of the movie, it will be nice and sunny outside still. So that's my review of Evil Dead Rise, now in theaters. Share your own thoughts down below. Subscribe today. And of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.